Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's been a few years since I've spoken to your club, so I'm pleased to be able to give you a bit of a update on what's happening at CenterPort. So Amy, I guess I'll ask you if you could pop up the presentation. That would be terrific. We have a few slides that I think will help frame some of the conversation. One of the few good things about being together on Zoom is that everyone can see the screen and the slides up close and personal. So that's one modest advantage of being able to do this remotely. So as Roy mentioned, we are an inland port, and what an inland port is basically about high quality industrial space connected to different modes of transportation. And the importance of that is it helps companies, and this sounds kind of jargony, but basically manage their supply chains. And what that means is there's obviously trade-offs between time efficiency of moving things by air cargo versus rail, but there's also cost efficiencies by taking the slower option. And so having different options on site allows companies to make those trade-offs in order to serve their clients and companies. Next slide, please. So why Winnipeg for a project like this? Well, yes, we are in the very center, not only of Canada, but also North America, but it's really about our connectivity to different markets through rail and through ocean ports. And so this map, I think, shows you very well how through rail lines we're connected to multiple ocean ports in Canada, the United States, and in Mexico. And that gives companies different options for being able to manage global trade products. Next slide, please. The site that was chosen for CenterPort allowed us to bring together different modes of transportation so that shippers have access to those all from their particular site. And so the northwest part of Winnipeg, and we'll show you what that looks like on a map in a minute, gives us access on site to 3 Class 1 rail carriers. We're actually the only Canadian city on the prairies that's served by CN, CP, and Burlington Northern Santa Fe, so that's a distinct advantage. We're also an international trucking hub in Winnipeg, and already over 70% of Manitoba's trucking industry is located at CenterPort. Of course, we're about an hour north of the Emerson border crossing, and the Emerson border crossing is actually the busiest border crossing by volume of trade west of Detroit-Windsor. So very significant location being at that northern end of that mid-continent trade and transportation corridor that some are now referring to as the TMEC corridor with the new USMCA trade agreement that's replaced NAFTA. We also have access to the air cargo operations of the airport on site. Winnipeg is actually the busiest airport in Canada for dedicated cargo freight movements. And so that's a real significant advantage for some of our companies, and particularly now as we're seeing more of a shift into e-commerce to support particularly consumer good distribution. Next slide, please. So the area here on this map that's in kind of that burgundy color actually represents the 20,000 acre footprint relative to the size of Winnipeg. And so it gives you a bit of a perspective on how big the Inland Port project is. We were actually created by an act of the province that was passed back in late 2008. And that legislation did a few things. First, it created the non-share capital corporation. So we're not a government agency. We're a not-for-profit agency, but it created us and gave us a mandate to facilitate the overall development of the project, to act as a single window for business investment activity, and to market the project. The legislation also prescribed the footprint, and so that land base is actually set out in the Act. Next slide, please. So I think I've mentioned some of these things. We're 20,000 acres in size, on-site trimodal access, so that's important. And what we've been doing since we were created is essentially looking at all of the various aspects that business needs in order to be successful. And some of that has been infrastructure, some of that has been the logistics platform. It also has included some of the softer services around fast-track land development approvals. We have in place sustainable development requirements that help us to ensure that there's a sustainable development lens that not only every developer takes, but also every company locating at CenterPort. And we have planned the entire project as a complete community. Next slide, please. So this is the development and land use map for CenterPort, and it gives you a perspective of the boundaries, but also what's intended. So it's Route 90 to the east, the Perimeter Highway to the north and to the west, Saskatchewan Avenue to the south, but dipping down under Murray Industrial Park on Ness Avenue back over to Route 90. The project itself falls both within the rural municipality of Rosser, and so you can see on this map that dark blue dashed line that represents the municipal boundaries. Everything north of that in CenterPort North is in the arm of Rosser. South of that is in the city of Winnipeg and is what we refer to as CenterPort South. The area in the southeast corner is the James Armstrong Richardson International Airport, and those are federal crown lands. The airport has the primary responsibility for managing operations and development of those lands. So we collaborate closely with the airport. Those airport lands are scoped in as part of CenterPort. However, the WAA, it has the responsibility for managing development on that site. Now, some of the things that you can see on this map are CenterPort Canada Way, which is the expressway that runs right through the interior of the inland port. You can see this main CP east-west line that runs through it. That's called the CP Carberry sub, and that's CP's main east-west line across Canada. There is also another CP subline, the CP Glenborough sub, that runs off that main line. And the CN rail sub is also connected onto that line. Some of the developments that have been occurring have been all in the arm of Rosser since we were founded. And those are primarily the areas that are in the darker blue color. So we have a number of new industrial parks up and along Route 90 and then inbound on CenterPort Canada Way. We also have a new oat processing facility under construction at Patterson Global Foods. And we have some single users that have bought pretty significant pieces of land. So we have Imperial Seed, we have 4 Tracks, and we have Bison Transport. Now, Bison Transport actually acquired 475 acres for a new corporate campus. And as those lands in CenterPort South in the city of Winnipeg get serviced, they will be able to shift from their current headquarters just on the east side of the airport over to this new campus. If you are ever driving along CenterPort Canada Way and you look to the north, you will see a number of Bison trucks and trailers parked on that site, but it currently is just used for parking. It's not fully developed as their future campus. Now, coming soon is the CenterPort Canada Rail Park, and that's the area that's in yellow. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in a minute. We're very excited about this project. And land development in what we call CenterPort South, the city of Winnipeg, is also moving forward. And as that moves forward, it's going to bring into the market a new residential community. That's the area that's in dark green. That's about a 500-acre project that'll bring about 8,000 residents to the site, as well as new airside industrial space. So the airport has, as part of its long-term planning, a plan to move and shift its cargo integrator services to its west side campus to be more CenterPort facing, and then a significant amount, about 1,100 acres of new industrial land as well. Next slide, please. So I mentioned it's being planned as a complete community. So that is why CenterPort is more than just about industrial space. But obviously at the heart of it, we are an economic development project, and so job creation and economic growth are critical. Since we started, we've welcomed over 100 new companies to the footprint, and they're in various stages of construction or actual operation now. I mentioned the residential component. We also have protected all of the green spaces in CenterPort, and that's included golf courses, ball diamonds, off-leash dog parks. Part of the new residential community will include walking trails, retention of the old oak stands of trees that are in that area along Omens Creek are all protected. And so it's really important to us that CenterPort not just look like we have, you know, a paved paradise, so to speak, and put up a parking lot. So it's very important to us that we have a significant amount of green space that is appealing not only to those who work and live in that area, but who also come to visit the site. In the planning works for CenterPort is also connectivity on active transportation. Very critical that we do not have residents or people on bikes competing with trucks for space on our expressways. And so going forward, there's already construction of new active transportation routes, but you'll see even more of that in the future. So there's been a significant amount of infrastructure investment to date to support the economic growth that's happening now at CenterPort. I mentioned CenterPort Canada Way, but there's also been upgrades to a number of other trade corridors, and the province continues to do that work. There was a new water treatment facility constructed to service CenterPort North, but also to be a Western municipal regional solution. So that water treatment facility is also providing water to West St. Paul, to Rockwood municipality, as well as a backup to the Headingley area. Wastewater services for the region are provided by the City of Winnipeg. CenterPort also has had a significant amount of planning from a power perspective. It is, there is not only currently significant power usage through industrial companies located there being serviced, but going forward, it is considered a high voltage area for large industrial users. And so that gives us an opportunity to co-locate and be able to provide better services to those companies from the site. Next slide, please. And one of the really unique things that we have in place in CenterPort North, which is in the arm of Rosser, is a special planning area. And this was created to be able to bring transparency and accountability to the land development decision-making process, to make it simple and seamless, and basically to ensure that companies get the information and the feedback they need in order to be able to undertake subdivision, rezoning, or building permit applications. And so this process allows us to offer building permits with approximately 2 weeks notice and to conduct simultaneously subdivision activity within about, and rezoning within about 3 months. Now, this is really important to the bottom line of companies because it gives them planning certainty in order to be able to move forward with their growth or their expansion plans. Next slide, please. Now, the rail park is one of the newest projects that will be coming to CenterPort. It's on 665 acres of land that is located between CenterPort Canada Way to the east and the Perimeter Highway to the west. It's located within the RM of Rosser and immediately south of the CP Carberry sub that we showed you on an earlier map. We went to market about 2.5 years ago, back up please, Amy, to find a developer for this project. And we are in the process of closing the arrangement. That the developer is in due diligence on this particular project, with construction coming no later than spring 2022. Now, what's unique about this project is it allows companies who ship by rail, either part or a significant amount of their goods, to be able to co-locate and to be able to share infrastructure. So it provides an efficiency for the railroads because you have a number of companies on site that require rail service, but it also provides an economy of scale for the companies locating there. It's a very unique real estate project. We see this as incredibly important to the future of CenterPort as an inland port project. And we're really excited that this project's going to be on the market next spring. Next slide, please. So I spoke a little bit about coming soon CenterPort South. So the new land use plans for the industrial and the residential campuses within CenterPort South are in process of being reviewed formally by the City of Winnipeg. There will be a public hearing on those later in May. The preliminary public hearings found that development in this area was extremely well received by the residents. So we're very excited about that. And obviously, after the new land use plans are in place, the next item for consideration is servicing. The City of Winnipeg hired KGS to prepare a preliminary design of the water and wastewater servicing for CenterPort South. And that report should be released very soon. And so the City of Winnipeg will then have some decisions to make around the timing of servicing these lands. But we're very excited to see this move forward, as are the developers, the airport, and obviously Bison Transport. Next slide, please. So I mentioned we are an economic development project. CenterPort was created to help take advantage of our central geographic location and our transportation assets by dedicating a space that allowed us to invest strategic infrastructure with the ultimate goal of attracting investment by business and obviously then job creation. So the expected build out and operational build activity at the site at full build out is about 100,000 new jobs created per year and a significant boost to Manitoba's GDP of about $8 billion a year. And so it's we're starting to see right now significant market response to the infrastructure that's been put down. It is challenging for developers to keep up with the demand, so it's a very good problem to have. And if you are able to take a drive out in that area, I think you will be very surprised by the significant amount of new companies that are now on site. Next slide, please. So that is our overview presentation and a bit of an update. And if there's time and you would like, I'm happy to answer any questions or please feel free to share any observations you would like.